Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat. We have a great week this week to talk to Anita Keagy, and she's going to tell us all about an amazing ministry that she has. But before we get into that, welcome, Anita, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm just a mom and a grandma and a great grandma. I love this season of life where I get to enjoy the fruit of raising children and having the benefit of now being able to influence my grandkids and having a few great grandkids. We live on a farm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We were
Mm.
produce farmers for years, went to market. And now our son, who is third generation, took over the stand in Reading Fairgrounds Market. So we're a working family, and we've been busy all of our life because anyone who goes to market knows it's a lot of work. Um, so I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up as a pastor's daughter,
Mm.
and I lived in different areas with my father, moving to take on new churches. So uh that's my history was being raised as a pastor's daughter and being very blessed to have wonderful parents and siblings, four siblings, but then the majority of my life has been spent on a produce farm and just raising a family and working hard.
That's great. You don't look old enough to be a great grandma.
Well, there's a reason I'm a great grandma, and you're going to hear about it today. That probably
All
has
right, good.
a
Yeah, well,
little.
I'd like to hear about it. Well, you have a book out called Seeking God First and a nonprofit called Joyshop Ministries. And I stopped Anita because we were talking before and she has just a great story. I was like, wait, I want my audience to hear this. So, so how about you start over and just share with us how you started this ministry?
Well, to be honest, you didn't really hear the first part of how my
Yeah,
ministry
let's hear the big
started.
beginnings.
So I actually have a first book that's called The File, A Mother and Child's Life-Changing Reunion. So that is where my journey begins, which led to Joy Shop Ministries. As I mentioned, I was a PK, and at 17, I found myself pregnant. And back in that day, that was a big deal. We're talking 50 years ago. There weren't pregnancy resource centers like they have today to help somebody in my shoes.
Mhm,
And so all I had was God and my family
mhm,
and my church. I was blessed to have the parents who loved me. They never shamed me.
mhm,
Neither did the church family. When I sought forgiveness and help and owned, my personal moral failure, there was forgiveness and people stood by me. It was really a gift from God. I learned what
It's
grace
great.
means, you know?
Mm.
But my parents didn't tell me what to do. Of course, at first, I wanted to get an abortion. I'm just being transparent, even though I felt it was taking a life. Fear will make you do things you wouldn't ordinarily do. And
Right.
so I did go to my parents. They told me I had to make the decision. I was now pregnant and they weren't going to tell me what to do. But when I told them I was thinking of an abortion, because I thought that would be the easiest way out of this mess, so to speak, I, I mean, I can't tell you how thankful I am that my parents cared more about my soul than they did about their reputation. I didn't
Mm.
tell you this, but we were brand new at a church in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We'd only been there 2 months. I got pregnant in Tennessee, not knowing when we
Oh,
moved up, I was pregnant. So
okay.
voila, here's this pastor's daughter pregnant at 17.
Yeah.
And so they just said to me, Anita, we know how you'll feel years from now if you make that choice. So we're going to say no to that choice because we love
Mm.
you too much.
Mm.
And so, because I had that unconditional love from my parents, I had the courage to choose life for my child.
Mm.
And I prayed for wisdom, and I'm really shortening this up because we don't have a lot of time. It's the whole stories in my book, of course, but I prayed for wisdom from God, and I felt He had told me the best plan was to place my child for adoption. Well, of course, I didn't know what that was going to cost. I
Mm,
had no clue. And so as I got closer to my due date, and I am feeling my baby kicking and moving inside of me, there is a bond forming now with this child.
mm,
And the closer I got to the due date, the more I cried and said, God, I can't do this. I can't give up my own flesh and blood. I love
yeah.
this child. And if it hadn't been for the radio one day, I was listening to somebody speaking, teaching, and all of a sudden, you know how you hear something and you know it's for you? This pastor said, never doubt in the dark what God has taught you in the light.
Huh.
For me, that was the moment where I felt God was saying, Anita, when you came to me for wisdom, you were in my light, but now your emotions are going to take you into the dark.
Huh.
It's going to get darker. Hang on to what I told you in the light. And so that was my seal the deal moment where I thought, no matter what my emotions are screaming, I'm sticking with the plan that I felt at way back that God wanted me to do because of the peace I had about it. So anyway, uh, January 25th, 1975, I gave birth to a little girl. And back in that day, they encouraged you not to see your child. So I
Mm.
never got to see my little girl or hold her.
Oh gosh.
I heard her little cry as they
Mm.
took her out. And I'm going to tell you, the day
Ugh.
at the hospital without her was the hardest day of my life.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating to me is I never saw her, but I loved her unconditionally. And that love stayed with me all the years. I went on to college. First of all, I should tell you, I had to trust God completely that He would take care of my daughter. I asked her to be placed in a Christian home, with a mom and dad. And I asked God to meet her in her pain of abandonment and rejection. Because most people who are adopted deal with that. They
Mm.
can't help it. And so, anyway, I had to go on with my life. I got married and then a few years later, and God bless my husband, I have four children, but I never forgot my daughter. And so one day I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it easy for her to find me if she ever wants to. So I called up the agency and I said, I want to give you my married name now, my address, my phone number. And I said, why? Well, here, I didn't know this. When I called them, they told me I could start a file at the agency. Like I could write my daughter letters
Oh
and
wow.
send them to the agency. They would put them in a file. And when she turned 18, legally, they could give her information. They could give her the letters if she contacted them.
Okay.
So I was blown away. I was so excited. So I began, writing these letters to her, sending them to the agency, and then waiting. So 18, she turned 19, 20, 21, nothing happened. And finally at 21, after talking to my husband, I called the agency and I just said, I don't even know if this is legal or possible, but is there a way you can find my daughter and let her know there's a file with letters for her? Obviously, I couldn't make her want the file or my letters.
Right.
I just wanted her to know. So I called them. They couldn't promise, but they said they would try. And within a week, I got a phone call saying they had found her. I heard her name for the first time. It was Twyla. And to my shock, she was married and had a little girl herself, a week
Oh
old.
my goodness.
And so, fast forward, she wasn't ready for the file. I mean, she had to process, but She told the agency she was willing to write me a letter out of the goodness of her heart to let me know how she was doing.
Okay.
And she would send it to the agency, and then they would call me when it arrived. So the letter finally came. In the audience, I don't know if the audience can see this.
Yeah,
Well,
we can. Yeah.
okay. This is the original letter I
Mm,
got from my daughter.
wow.
Now, you can imagine this was a treasure. I'd never seen her. And I even wondered if she was real. After 21 years, you
Yeah.
just wonder. But this letter blew me away. And when I speak and I show this letter, I always say, do you think I just read this letter one time and said, oh, that's nice, and put it away and never read it
Yeah,
again?
you should laminate that so that
I
it
know.
won't get destroyed. I'm serious.
I do have copies of it, but you're probably right.
Okay,
I
good.
should laminate it. I
You
even
can
have the
hang it up.
original envelope, if lost, returned too, because this
That's so
goes with
cool.
me everywhere I speak, and there's a reason. So anyway, through that, we eventually started writing letters to each other till we felt ready to meet. So it was like an amazing gift from Jesus that he allowed me to meet my daughter, her husband, and my first granddaughter, Emily. So now we're going to fast forward because that was
Wait,
all.
when did she call you? How
Oh, that was
soon after?
back. It was when she turned 21. So that was in like 1986 or 1987.
But I
Somewhere.
mean, it was shortly after she got your letters.
Yes. Yeah, it was within a
Okay.
month or so.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
from the time she wrote the letter till the time we actually met, it was probably only like 3 months. So, after we met, and we didn't know where our relationship would go, but we both loved Jesus, so I knew we had a chance.
Did she live anywhere near you?
Yes, I
Oh,
Lord, she grew up in a conservative Mennonite home, the cape dress and the covering,
oh, wow.
within 30 minutes of me.
Oh my goodness,
And
that's crazy.
it was crazy. I had
That's so cool.
So anyway, there's a lot of cool things that I don't have time to tell. But anyway, after we met, one day I decided to show up with my Bible reading and spend time with the Lord. And this is the day that my ministry was called forth. I was reading the story in Acts 17 where Paul is in Athens, and I'm sure you're familiar with this story. He sees all these idols, but his eyes zero in on this one idol that's engraved to an unknown God. So he calls the town people together, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but he says, I see you're religious, and I see all these idols, and there's one you worship that says a God you don't know, an unknown God. I'm going to tell you who that God is. And he goes on in verse 26, 27, and 28 to say, this God created you to seek him, to reach out and find him. And he's not that far away from you. And as your own poets have said, we're his offspring. And let me tell you, it was that little word seek that jumped off at the page at me. And all of a sudden, I heard the Holy Spirit saying in my heart, Anita, you get this. You know how you wanted your daughter to seek you, to want to find you. That's how I feel about all my children. I
Mm,
created them to seek me. That's the whole purpose, that they might seek me and find me so I can be in their life. And then you know how you started a file and letters telling your daughter how loved she is and that you want to be in a relationship with her? What do you think my Bible is? This is my file. These are my letters. And the same reason you put letters in your daughter's file is the same reason I put letters in my file. I want my kids to know I love them.
mm.
That I paid a price to have a relationship with them. But just like you couldn't make her open the file and read your letters and want to know you, neither can I make my own offspring open the Bible and read my letters. And you know what that feels like.
Mm,
And I'm going to tell you, I cry every time when I think about this, Sue. But I knew that pain of thinking, what if she's struggling, with feeling rejection? And here's these letters telling her she's loved, but she doesn't know it.
mm,
And that broke my heart.
mm,
And for the first time, I saw how my carelessness with God, my relationship with God, I got kind of complacent with the word. When you have it at your fingertips, you just kind of can ignore it. And I just thought of the way all of God's children, including myself, how I'd walked past my Bible so many times and never really bothered to pick it up. And then he went on, he wasn't done with me. He said, Anita, I have noticed that you sure don't read my letters like you read hers.
mm.
Hmm.
That
And
got you.
it did, because he was right. I couldn't wait to read her letters. Reading the Bible had become a chore in some
Mm,
ways. Oh, I need to
mm,
do this to be a good Christian, you know?
mm, mhm,
Even Bible study had become, I did it because it was a good discipline, but there's no joy when you have to make yourself study something. And I realized that I read her letters for the joy of just knowing her.
mm,
And I had lost that with God's word. And so that's the moment I literally laid down on the floor, like face down,
mm,
because I felt God's heart for the first time.
mm.
And I said, Lord, I'm yours. And I said, if you are real and this revelation is your truth, and you want me to share my story and give everyone a Bible reading plan, you open the door and I will speak. And let me tell you, it wasn't long till God began to open the doors for me to share my story, because everyone was curious. Oh, you had a daughter that you gave up? Well, tell us about it. And
Uh,
so the doors began to open, and I never dreamt it would turn into a nonprofit Joyshop Ministries. That was never my intention. But what happened as I kept speaking and sharing and giving everyone a Bible reading plan and encourage them to open their Bibles and get to know Jesus, I saw the hunger in people's hearts. People really are hungry for God.
mm,
But we've allowed things to get in the way of that, which led to my second book and my Bible study series, The Joy of Seeking God First. This is a big deal. I want to make sure I mention this. I have a 6-week Bible study on YouTube and on Right Now Media. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Right Now Media, but it's a digital library that a lot of churches subscribe to so that their people can go online and find all these Bible studies. So it's called The Joy of Seeking God First. And that uh, is where I just teach about how for years I was a part-time seeker. In other words, I spent time with God when it suited me. And most of us can relate to that. But one day after he gave me the revelation about the file and the letters, then he gave me a revelation a couple years later saying, Anita, you are not seeking me first. You are not prioritizing time with me. And I knew it was truth based on Matthew 6:33, where Jesus says, don't worry about your life, instead seek my kingdom first. And I began taking that literally. I was going to start every day. I didn't care if I was depressed or not, if he wasn't answering my prayers or not, or if I was sleepy or didn't get any sleep. Every morning I started my day with him. And when the joy started coming and the life started coming, I was like, I got to tell other people about this. If they don't teach it from the pulpit, at least I didn't feel we were getting the right dose of it. So I held my first workshop Now, this was different from me telling my story and the biblical application. That was always a part of it, but that wasn't the full workshop. So I asked the church and my staff if I could have a little workshop one Saturday morning. I had the date picked, and they said, "That's a great idea." Well, you know what? The head pastor's going to be away the Sunday before. Why don't you give the morning message and then you can invite everybody to your workshop? Well, I'm like, crap, I don't want to, excuse my language. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But I said to God, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. So I gave my little message on what kind of seeker are you, you know? And the next Saturday, over 80 people showed up. And that was my very first workshop that was
Okay.
only 2 hours long. And people kept asking me, we need this, teach it again, teach it again. I did it 4 times at my church that year. And then I kept getting invitations. And when I saw the hunger, um, I knew I had to form a ministry, which is scary because it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a
You
lot of
know,
work.
it is a lot of work,
More than
but
you realize, I think.
it's true. But God gave me the grace and the strength. And what we were talking about before we became live was as I was teaching this workshop, my husband was funding the ministry. You know, all my materials, I told God I would never charge for my time to teach because God had given me all my material through my life experiences.
Mhm.
And I just thought, I cannot charge for what he gave me. And so my husband would pay for me to print all my little materials, you know. Um, but eventually I was coached to start a nonprofit so people could support the ministry because uh, even though I have this Bible study that's for adults on YouTube and Right Now Media, my passion is with young people today and youth. And I knock on doors. I speak in schools 2 ways. If it's a Christian school, I get into chapels, or maybe I'll do a spiritual life week. And if it's a secular school, I get in through Fellowship of Christian Athletes or some other Christian ministry. But when I go in, I have 15, 20 minutes. That is it. So I get to go in, tell my story, make the spiritual application, and then everybody gets a journal with the Gospel of John in it that says, Letter from God. And I give them the 21-day challenge of reading one chapter a day in John and answering 2 questions. And the first one is, Jesus, what do you want me to know about you? Read the chapter, answer that question. When they're done with that question, if they have a little more time, read the chapter again and answer this question, Jesus, what do you want me to do? Because in John, I think it's John 8, Jesus says, I do know him, talking about the Father, and do his will. And I just think that's a beautiful way for us. We want to know him and we want to do his will because that's where the joy is in the life and the service. And so I go in, it's expensive for me to go into schools to give these journals out because they cost about $5 a student. And I've given out 1,800 in one shot in a college setting, in a Christian college chapel. So that's why I'm a nonprofit. People support the ministry so I can go into any school I want and hand these journals and Gospel of John out free. I love what I do. So,
Wow, that's a really beautiful story. Um, so I can see where that motivates people to get into God's word. You
mhm.
know, do you find that you have some people, maybe privately, women talking to you about your choice not to abort?
Yes, I always do. And I think one of the hardest things for me when I'm in any audience, because, there's plenty of girls in school settings that have had abortions.
Mhm.
My heart is very sensitive to that because I wanted to get an abortion because of the fear I had.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, I honestly feel the thief is out. We all know this. John 10:10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Mhm.
And I feel he speaks lies into these girls' lives that you buy into, because I almost did it. And it steals a life. A life is stolen when it's aborted. But I would never judge a person because I understand. I
Yeah.
understand why some have chosen that. And so it's only by God's grace, with the help of my parents, that I didn't make that choice. And I always pray before I speak. If I remember, I try to touch on that in God's word it says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from what? All unrighteousness, all the ways we miss the mark, not just some of them.
Mhm.
And so I try to bring hope to those who have struggled with that decision and that they made, that you're forgiven. It's not the unpardonable sin. God forgives. He's there. But honestly, there are some, it's sad for me, that don't even see it as taking a life,
A life. Yeah.
even in Christians,
Right.
you know. So I don't judge. I just point people to Jesus. But definitely, I get women who've had abortions talk to me. I have kids that come up to me who are adopted, who share things with me they wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with their parents because they don't want to hurt
Mm.
their feelings.
Yeah.
The number one question I get that always just makes me want to cry is, do you think my birth mom thinks of me on my birthday?
Oh.
And you know what? I just put my arms around that child and I give them a big hug and I say, yes. And I'm going to give you a hug on her behalf because
Mm.
there's some reason she can't do it. We don't know what it is, but
Mm.
I'm going to do it for her. And so I have those moments too. So,
I would guess that it emboldens some people to go seek to find their parent.
well, it probably does, but when I feel the Lord leading me, if a kid comes to me privately and says they're thinking about it as a young person, even as an older person, I kind of give them some steps. And I have three of them. I hope I can remember them. I'm getting old. But the first one is, you better pray about it.
Mm.
You must
Always.
pray about it and see
Yeah.
if this is what you're to do and for God's timing. And the second thing is, you better talk to your parents. They need to be on board and be supported to you because you're going to need it. And the third thing is, are you willing to accept what you might find?
Mm.
Because it
Yeah.
might not be good.
Yeah. It
There
might
is
not be
that
your
risk.
happy ever
Yes,
after.
exactly. Now they hear my story, and I'm going to go back to, you said I look like a young great grandma. Well, that's because my birth daughter's oldest daughter, Emily, now has three boys. And so they're
Wow.
great grandsons. They live in Sarasota, Florida. And I go down it. My husband and I are snowbirds in the winter. So I get to go see them every winter. It is a blessing. My story, I honestly feel the reason it ended so good, so to speak, is my parents were prayer warriors. They prayed every single day of Twyla's life. They prayed for her. This was their first grandchild. You think about that. Your
Mm.
first grandchild
Yeah.
that you are giving to someone else to raise. It was as painful for them as it was for me.
Did they
And
ever say, hey, if you keep this baby, we'll help raise the
yes,
child?
yes, they were always open. I even had relatives that said they could adopt if I wanted that. But I just thought that'd be too weird, back in that day,
Yeah.
to see my child at an aunt and uncle's house,
Yeah. But your
you know,
parents,
yeah.
you felt like no, even with
they didn't push me one way or the other. They again, this was 50 years ago. There were probably subconsciously, I think there were reasons that that went into my decision. One of them being my parents didn't have a lot of money. They raised five kids. I
Mm.
had no means of providing for this child. So I feel like I thought about everyone else except for my birth daughter. That sounds kind of cruel to say, but in essence, because I didn't know my daughter yet,
Hmm.
I was concerned about my actions. I mean, my parents, that this was going to cost them something. And then, now this is going to be like a soap opera. I knew the father of the child was in love with my best friend, my girlfriend.
Oh, oh,
And you know what? They ended up getting married
oh,
eventually.
wow.
And so
Did
that
he ever
weird.
know? And did he
He
want to know
he
the child?
knew, but it's boy, I could tell you so many things, but he knows about her. But he has never been transparent. His wife knows because she was my best friend. She was the only
Mm.
person I told. They weren't dating at that time, but I knew he was in love with her. But she was my best friend. And so she knew I had this baby. She came to see me from Tennessee to Pennsylvania right before the baby was born to support me. And then eventually they went to the same college and then they got married and they had four kids, but he's never been transparent with them, so nobody knows. And it's his story. But they have reached out to him. Her husband went to meet him face to face. So there has been that connection, but he's just, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, but he just can't bring himself to acknowledge her and meet her, even though it's evident that that she is his child.
Has she, has your daughter asked about him
Oh yeah.
or
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to meet him or
Oh yeah.
anything like that?
She's written, I mean, she has all the contact information. She has sent him an email. He's on staff at a church.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Well, at least he's an elder. I shouldn't say on staff. I mean, he has a role in the church. Um, so he knows that she would like to meet him. But then she tells me, you know what? If he doesn't want to meet me,
Yeah.
what fun is that going to be for me?
Yeah, that stinks. I know.
Yeah, it stinks.
Well, sounds like a movie.
Yeah, we've had some people. My
Have
daughter
you?
wants to write a screenplay, and there was another couple that worked on years because they just felt it had to be a movie. But the doors never open, so I still think someday it will
Well,
have
it's a cool title. The
which title
file.
the file.
The
Yeah.
file. That kind of draws you like, what? When you told me that was the name of your first book, I'm like, what? What's that about?
Well, you know
Okay.
what it's about now, the
I
file.
know. I
Uh,
love that
I,
analogy.
you
Well,
know,
I'm ready to sign you up to come speak somewhere. No, that's really great.
well, I
So, yeah,
I
I'd
would
love
love
for
it.
you to share how people could reach you if they'd love to bring you to their church or
Yeah, thank
and
you.
obviously also about your book and everything and your
Yes.
ministry.
Well, our website is joyshop.org, Joyshop, joyshop, one word, .org. And if you go to that page, you'll scroll down, there'll be something that says book an event or something like that. You can go through there, say who you are, what you're looking for, and then my assistant gets that and then brings it to me, and we look at the schedule and see if we can do it. And, I don't like to talk about money up front but I know people want to know, well, does it cost? No, I always say, I come as is. Uh, if they're going to do any of my materials, then if they can, I ask them to cover the cost of the workbooks. If I'm going to do a extended teaching, like in a
Hmm.
retreat setting. But
Hmm.
if it's not that, then just travel expenses. But if a church chooses to bless the ministry through an honorarium, they give it to Joyshop Ministries because I volunteer. I don't take a salary. because I know God's called me to this. I'm blessed that I get to do this. I I pray I can do it for a long time yet. And I'll have to tell you the one fun thing, I love youth groups. I mean, I'll come to any church, but I love youth groups. And believe it or not, God has given me favor with kids today. The minute they hear me saying I got pregnant,
Mm.
it's as quiet as, I mean, it's quiet. I have never spoken to a young junior high, high school, young adult. I have never spoken ever where people have talked just while I'm speaking and like they're tuned in. They are listening. And when given the amount extra time, I actually do a practice session with the kids. They all get their journal, they get the Gospel of John, and I give them 10 minutes to read John chapter 15, the first 17 verses, and answer those two questions. Because I feel if I can practice it with them,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
they'll
Yeah,
feel the presence of God, and then there's a chance they might take the 21-day challenge. Well,
yeah.
when I tell teachers I'm going to do this, they nearly have a heart attack. Well,
Oh.
you'll never get them quiet to do that. Guess what? Quiet. They do it. And then we come back and they share what they learned about Jesus. That's
Yeah.
my paycheck right there. That is my paycheck.
Oh,
When
that's
they
sweet.
come back and just share what they learned about Jesus in those few minutes that they
Hmm.
read John 15. Sorry, I get so excited about it.
I love it. That's great. So tell us the names of your two books again?
Okay, the first one that I did was The File, A Mother and Child's Life-Changing Reunion. And the other one is Seeking God First. And the subtitle is A Practical Plan to Finding Peace and Joy. They're both on Amazon. They're also on my website. But those who have Amazon Prime, it's a good way to get the book because of free shipping.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Anita. This
Yeah,
was amazing story. Y'all please share this. That's our application.
I love
Um, to others, I think they'll be really, really encouraged by it. They might share it to their teenager or whoever.
Yeah, I would
So,
love that. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for the opportunity,
Oh,
your platform here to just share. And I always trust God. He's got something good. He's going to help someone because of the message. And I know you experience that with everything you do. You're not doing
yeah.
this for nothing.
Well, it encouraged me. Goodness
Oh,
me, I
good.
just feel very lifted up. It's really
Oh,
cool.
good. Well, thank you.
So, yeah. All right. Awesome. Love it. All right. Y'all have a great week, and we'll be back again next week. And Anita, thank you again.
Thank you. Loved it.